What's cracking, people? It's your man, Cousin T, aka the Alpha Wingman, representing high-level technicians, operating globally and beyond. So listen, today I wanted to continue in the male Octane observation series with a case study that I've kind of been wanting to do for a while, and that's a closer observation or deeper dive, a more detailed look at HBO's Insecure's character, Lawrence. Now, Lawrence is the quintessential 92 Octane man, and that his upbringing and also his schooling places him in the space of the typical white collar professional class. And so with using BGS IBMOR's Octane model, that would place him as a 92 on the scale, 92 being the professional. And for this target for observation, we've got the age range of 22, meaning the average age after attaining a bachelor's degree, to 64, retirement age. Average salary being 33K to 150K. So in this presentation, I am going to introduce the graph, the infamous graph. If you remember from the female Octane observations, there was a graph that I presented that took the analysis of the population in total and lined it up with the Octane equivalent. For this particular presentation of the male Octane observations, there had to be adjustments made. This is because the burden of production is placed upon men. Not only that, but we are endowed with the ability to produce. We are endowed with the elements of production. We are endowed just in how we're designed to utilize our ability to produce. So that is a standard metric of measuring our performance output, which, interestingly enough, requires the full usage of the Octane scale, but also an additional space, which you can see in this graphic, for a position of the target case study population that is unaccounted for within the standard populace of the labor force, and that is the shadow economy. I will not get into depth with that here. I've got two links below that go into all of the stats. I have all of the links for the research provided as well. And another interesting part to this is that for the female Octane observations, I purposely left out at first the observation for the 85 Octane, but in order to do a holistic view or provide a holistic observation of the full scale, the 85s had to be incorporated, because that offers a very key component to the overall story and the overall picture that is painted and presented with the description. So if you're feeling froggish, go ahead and click the links below, and you can get a deeper dive into the statistics and the ratios as they are provided. So getting back to the case for Lawrence, the 92 Octane man, we see with his case study, this is Lawrence aka Jay Ellis. His world is technology, programming, and project management. Sex identifies as male. Height 6'2", weight 190 pounds. Octane grade, of course, is 92. Now, again, one of the key identifiers that's a difference between the female Octane observations and the male. In this space, I would include their S&V, the female's S&V. For the males, we've got the salary range or the net worth. So his salary range is about 150K to 200K. Obviously, he's got the new role in the office in San Francisco. We'll see how that plays out next season. His identifiers are trendy fashion with a range of standard corporate uniforms. That's an important fact to note. We'll come back to that later. His environment of operation: corporate America, upper middle class, and multicultural spaces. His skill sets: problem solving, analytics, support functionality. What he values. Now this plays more into his character, but I think it's a telling sort of observation that plays out in a lot of 92 Octane scenarios. He values familiarity, cooperation, personality quirks that humanizes his relationships, and we see that over the course of his relationships with Issa, who is obviously the primary character in the TV show. So he'll inevitably always find his way back to her, no matter what the drama is. But what I want to go through is just a quick recap of the various relationships that Lawrence entertained so far over the course of the seasons of the show. And we're going to start with, of course, Issa. Issa is his primary relationship and the relationship that started the show. Issa, in my evaluation, is an 89 Octane bottom mistress who rates as a 5. But of course, she and Lawrence have a very unique history in his more formative years, so she'll always have that special connection with him. Moving on, we see that Lawrence got with Tasha after his breakup with his initial breakup with Issa, and Tasha rates as an 87 Octane. Questionable as far as her ranking. We never saw her with any groups or a female hierarchy, so I'm going to label her as an outlier. But her overall rating, I'll give her a 7. And we saw that his interactions with her were more sexual, obviously. In terms of social compatibility, they were not as compatible, but there were some themes that I could appreciate the show presenting in terms of the cultural significance and the value of the cookout, and how no matter what your class status or presentation is, the value of relationships is paramount. Moving on to Lawrence's relationship with Arakana, who's one of his previous co-workers at a firm that he was at before transitioning from that. She didn't have as a significant role, but I would rate her as 92 Octane outlier as well. We did not see her interacting with a female group hierarchy either. Overall ranking, I would give her a 6. But why I wanted to present her relationship dynamic with Lawrence is because as a 92 male, if you have a level of confidence, if you have a level of comfort and relatability and diverse settings, then your dating and possible mating options are wide open. You have access to and the ability to interact with a diverse pool of potential mates. Moving on, we see his dynamic, or his relationship dynamic with Gondola, a natural 92 Octane, also bottom mistress, who I rate as a 6. And what I could appreciate about observing their relationship dynamic is when you have two 92 Octanes, two natural 92 Octanes, who engage one another, not just conversationally, but domestically. It was what the older men would refer to as easy. Their dynamic was organic. They had a lot of similarities in their background and also in their professional sort of aspirations. And you could see that none of their interactions were necessarily forced. Now, obviously, the drama that ensued with how the character development, according to the writers of the show, played out how they wanted to play out. But I think the key takeaways for me in observing their relationship is how those who are of a similar sort of octane scale can get along organically. It's not to say that those of different levels of the along the octane scale cannot, but there's more of a challenge. There are more barriers. There are more conversations that need to happen in order to better interface in spaces that are foreign to someone from a different octane scale. That we saw that play out with Lawrence's relationship, or brief relationship, with Tasha. But moving on from that, I want to present something that speaks to the overall purpose of the Octane observations, and that is a man's discovery of his why. Uh, what drives him? What ultimately makes you happy? And what plays into your mission, which is your end game? The first clip I'm going to play is from a conversation that myself, the Field Master Ron Wills, and the Master Teacher BGS had many months ago, that broke down and identified various elements to the Insecure show, and how that and how their use of real life scenarios sort of plays into our ability to make these observations make sense, and the inclusion of the Octane scale, the presence of the female group hierarchy, and other things like that. But there's a moment in a conversation that really spoke to what Lawrence was experiencing throughout his evolution over this series.
Stuff. Now, here's a question somebody had: do men have a similar hierarchy? And I'm like,
so that's a good question. Men, so we fortunately, we are not similar, and but we have our own structure. So men, we are mostly independent.
Yeah.
Whereas women are more a collective and group minded. Mm-hmm. So people say that they're hive minded. But yeah, men form alpha groups, men form beta groups. And that's another conversation for another day. But if you look at the Rat Pack, if you look at the Wolf Pack, if you look at the Wu-Tang Clan, if you look at different groups of guys,
you can watch any sports team, especially basketball. You can tell who the alpha is, and then the hierarchy going all the way down the line, down to the last person on the bench.
Absolutely. Exactly. And men form groups for a purpose. Men have to have a benefit or derive a tangible from grouping with other men. Otherwise, we're independent. We're good, sitting at in an apartment with a couch and a TV. You know what I'm saying? So we'll get a dog. When men come together and form groups, you have a very distinguished path, or I call them male allied collective ranks, okay, or markers. And the top of that is the kingpin. He's the one who has, again, the most social IQ. He knows how to navigate social situations and knows how to put guys in alignment and order. And he has the leadership capability. But what's interesting is his number two is the logician. Okay, his number two, or his top lieutenant or whatever. He's the logistics guy. He knows how to put together a scenario from start to finish, and A, B, C. This is how we need to figure this out. Back in the day, it used to be the king and his wizard. You know what I'm saying? Like the wizard doesn't necessarily want to be king because he'll let the king do all that kissing babies and shaking hands. Whereas the wizard or the magician or the tactician, he was good at being the number two because he knew the power in his role.
And so the next clip comes from the last season, the most recent season of Insecure, where Lawrence is moving back towards getting with Issa, and she's asking him where he is and where he's finding himself at the current place and time.
What about you? Are you happy?
Yeah, I think I'm getting there. I used to think I had to be like the leader or the ideas guy, but I'm starting to realize like I'm happier executing somebody else's vision. Like, I like being on teams.
Really? Because you always wanted to touch your own shit.
I think I just thought that because I was supposed to. But yeah, I would say I'm pretty happy right now.
And there you have it, gentlemen. When you align with your internal mission trajectory, and externally, when you align yourself with other men who have similar goals, who have similar purposes, and who can enhance and accelerate your mission, you discover the value in relationships. And at the end of the day, the Octane observations, from my perspective, is showing how those expressions present themselves across socioeconomic presentations. So, right now we're going to get into the geopolitical positionings of a post-industrial. All right, guys. Have your girlfriends left the room? Did your wife leave the room? All right, good. Tell me why they put the threesome in the show. Okay, now before I leave, we have to discuss this important topic of the threesome.